Hello, world, and welcome to Choices, Books, and Gifts, where you always have choices. We've had these ladies on before. They're a big hit, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. There's Tammy and Lyssie, and I'm going to read you a little bio on these lovely special ladies. So, Tammy Lakatos and Lyssie Lakatos make up the Aspiration Nutrition Duo. Here to help you transform the way you think about food, these twin sisters are nationally recognized registered dietitian nutritionists and personal trainers, so you know you are definitely in the right hands. With 15 years of experience, Tammy and Lyssie help thousands of clients boost their energy naturally, achieve their health goals, become happier, and reach tip-top shape. The pair was voted among the top 20 nutritional experts to follow on Twitter by the Huntington Post, and they're named a top influencer on Pinterest with over 4 million followers. That's quite the report. That's a wonderful report.
Thank you.
You guys are top notch and special. I'm so glad we get to have you on our show.
Thank you for having us.
We're excited to be here.
We are.
Yeah, I'm so excited you're here with us too. So if you don't mind, I'm going to jump into some questions and you guys answer the way you feel you want to answer.
Okay.
Perfect.
Number one, can you explain the concept of metabolism and why it's crucial for weight management and overall health?
Of course. And I will start by saying that our first book was about metabolism. It's called Fire Up Your Metabolism many years ago. But the thing about it is that the definition of metabolism is a little bit tricky, so we're going to make it really as simplified as possible. And it's kind of the way that your body uses your food to make energy.
Okay.
Very simplified.
Right.
Very simplified.
So when we're using food to make energy, there's different things that come into play. And so usually, for most of us, the majority of our energy is something that goes into keeping our organs alive. So that the food that we eat, those calories that we eat, it goes to keeping our heart beating and keeping those organs just working. And then there's a component of our metabolism that we can't control. And that's going to be our genetic.
Our age, whether we're male or female, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those things we can't change. But the great news is, while a lot of people mistakenly think that we're doomed by our, I have the worst metabolism, and then they feel like, why is that bad? Well, then it's because you feel like you're eating your food and it's just all not being used to make energy. It's all being used to store fat. And instead, what the truth is that we have a lot of control over our metabolism. And we're excited to share those things with you today because it's really inspiring to know that we can actually do a lot with our metabolism to really boost it. And that's what we do with our clients.
And I have to tell you, we have to do that with ourselves because we do genetic testing in our practice as well. And we have to tell you that we have every obesity gene, and we have, they show it in a picture in the genetic pathways of your metabolism, and they have a picture of us pushing how hard it will be for us to maintain our weight. We're pushing
up a hill,
pushing not just up a hill. We're pushing like a boulder that's bigger than us up a hill.
So does that mean your metabolism is a little off, or it's on?
Very genetically, it's very slow.
It's sluggish. So meaning genetically, it really wants to conserve everything we eat and not create energy, but it wants to conserve it as fat. So it takes a little extra.
Why does the body do that? Why?
Well, I mean, there goes back. I mean, if you look really at the research, and we don't talk about this a lot, but it looks, if you go back to generation after generation, we had some kind of family members who had to probably eat, and then they couldn't get food for a while, so their body learned how to slow the metabolism down to
conserve. Like a hibernation. I mean, a lot of us have that, but some of us must have come from different areas. However our genes turned out, our genes didn't feel like it was as protected. In our mind, we're this way because it was our advantage. So it was like our survival of the fittest. We had the survival of the fittest.
So let me ask you this question.
Because I don't think of it so positively.
She's always so down about our darn metabolism.
Let me ask you this. So for me, I think it's later on in life, I have a slow metabolism. So a doctor put me on a medication. Is that something you suggest, or should I do it with just diet and exercise? What are your thoughts?
That's a great question. I don't know what medication he put you on. There's a lot out there right now, but it really depends, because a lot of times we come from the school of thought that we always want to try to get our body to do what it can first, and then get the help of medication. Because usually with medications, there are side effects. You know, if you're talking about like Wegovy or
Ozempic,
you know, right now there's a lot of really positive things, but there are also a lot to still know. So that's, and it works very well for some people, but we just, there's some suspicions about things to be watching out for the long run. So if we can, regardless of that, we really want to boost our body's own metabolism.
Right. And the thing I wanted to add in here was that, you know, so a lot of people say, oh, my metabolism slowed as I got older, which it's very true. It's very related to lean muscle tissue. But the thing that people don't realize,
other things that we'll
that's
share.
what I was going to say. The thing that people don't realize that affect metabolism, no one ever thinks of things like inflammation, stress. What causes inflammation?
Insulin.
Toxins, right. Blood sugar swings. Like if you can keep your blood sugar even, your metabolism is going to stay fired up.
Yeah, we'll share that though.
Yeah.
I have a feeling a lot of
It's amazing because you mention those things, and I see the questions coming up that will handle those answers. I love our first question took so long because it was so informational. So I'm going to go to question 2. Thank you, ladies.
Okay. Of course.
What are some overlooked causes of a slow metabolism? Is it lack of eating right and lack of exercises, or you tell me?
Oh, well, there's many things, but the overlooked one, I mean, I think people realize more there are certain things they can do with their eating or with their
lean muscle tissue.
Right. The things that are really overlooked that people don't realize, well, there's many, and if we even just name a few, one being nutrients. If we don't have certain nutrients are needed to fuel our metabolic processes. So if we either have a genetic, and we all have metabolized vitamins through our genes, if we all have something that makes it a little bit harder for us to metabolize B vitamins, which are energy, or if we eat in a way when we're rushed and we don't release the enzymes that break down the food to cleave the nutrients that we need, then, I mean, well, that's a huge issue.
That is a huge issue.
I think we should spend a second there, because if you don't like we assume, oh, we're eating all this healthy food, well, we must be getting all of the nutrients we need to fuel our metabolism. Not so fast. If you eat like Tammy, when I tell her to get over here on time, she
starts fast. I'm like, I swallowed that whole.
Yeah, you're eating your food whole. You're not giving your body any notice. So you're not breaking down the food. You're not cleaving the nutrients. You're not giving your body the notice that it needs to release enzymes. And that's assuming that your enzymes work well. So these are all sorts of things.
And as we get older, after the age of 40, everyone's digestive enzymes just start to take a dive.
Especially
so is it important that we chew our food well? And not
It is. And also that takes our body out of what's known as the fight or flight mode. And we cannot digest our food if we're in that fight or flight mode. We have to be in a parasympathetic, relaxed state for rest and digest to actually absorb those nutrients. Otherwise, we're not even getting you might be eating all of the healthy foods. Before I ran over here, I ate a very healthy meal. I don't think I absorbed that much of it because she said, why aren't you here? I'm like, it might have been salmon, it might have been veggies, but it doesn't matter.
It's going to ferment in her stomach.
And that's the other thing. If your digestion is off, say your microbiome is off, which happens due to
stress, poor diet,
out drinking alcohol, toxins in the environment, that makes our microbiome our gut a little bit leaky, and that means we're not going to be absorbing our nutrients so well.
And that also changes the gut so that your gut favors metabolic weight gain. It favors weight. Fat gain. So these are things we look at. We look to see if our clients are digesting their food okay, because then of course if they're not, then we already know their metabolism isn't optimized. If their gut microbiome is off and it's got the bacteria that's favoring weight gain, then those are throwing it off. And then you have things like inflammation, and we all know about inflammation is like if we have an injury, it comes in and it tries to heal us quickly. But it's the chronic inflammation that we hear about that leads to all diseases like cancer, diabetes, heart disease. And that inflammation it changes our metabolism. It makes our metabolism favor fat gain.
Inflammation, chronic inflammation makes it harder to lose weight and easier to gain weight. And again, the things that cause inflammation aren't things you necessarily think about. Short stress, yes, it's a poor diet, but it's also exposures to toxins in our environment, the air that we breathe if we're not breathing clean air, the water that we drink, heavy metal exposure from, say, we're doing all the right things. We think we're having that organic protein powder, but if it's not a good brand, are there heavy metals in there that then contribute to inflammation?
And that inflammation is something, these are all things we can measure and check. We have all of our clients, we check certain measures of inflammation, and we want to make sure that it's low. And we keep testing. We make changes and we make sure it keeps working. So we know the metabolism is getting better. And then on top of the inflammation and the nutrient, there's also cortisol, the belly fat hormone. And how do we get that? Well, if we're stressed, that's when it comes out. If we're living this fast-paced life and we're running around and we're in the fight or flight mode all the time. So cortisol is called the belly fat hormone because it changes our metabolism so that we're favoring fat gain. We're storing fat.
See, that's so interesting to me because it seems like you chew your food, you just swallow it and run out the door. And I've seen her on the machines in the gym. She's a maniac. And
well, I've got to counterbalance that.
I would think that was something that would help the metabolism and help weight loss and help calories, but it's not necessarily true.
Well, if you're saying exercise is always going to help to burn calories, and it's also if you need to be doing that strength training, and I'm sure you'll be asking about that as well, but strength training is what keeps your lean muscle tissue. And lean muscle tissue is the most important thing when it comes to metabolism, because the more lean muscle tissue that you have, the faster your metabolic rate.
And that's why men...
So it's better to lift than cardio, or you need a mixture of both?
You need a mixture of both, but a lot of females especially will just say, oh, I don't feel like lifting weights. But it's so critical when it comes to metabolism.
Especially as we age. So if you've seen people that are in the gym, they tend to look a lot better when they're older than people their same age that don't go to the gym. And it's because they're maintaining that muscle mass. That is valuable real estate on the body because it's burning calories even when you're sleeping versus fat. No, it's really not active. That muscle tissue is active. And that's why men have a faster metabolism than women. They just have more muscle tissue and they're genetically engineered to have more tissue, but they can bump up their metabolism. Women especially can bump up their metabolism. It really makes a difference as they get older when we've already started to lose a lot of the muscle mass.
Right. And actually, it's surprising, but most men start losing their muscle tissue if they don't do anything to preserve it, meaning lifting weights, by age 30.
25.
Right, 25.
It's the one thing that women have on men. They start losing their muscle mass sooner. 25.
Men start
losing women?
25. They actually lose it more quickly than women.
Women start at age 30 losing it.
So
but if men start off with more.
And also if they're lifting weights, you can completely preserve that muscle tissue.
Right, which is why you see people in the gym that are 60, 70, that look fantastic. Like you look amazing. I don't know
you
your
look
age.
amazing. And talk about working out hard. You play pickleball for hours and hours. Then you strength train.
I do everything.
You
I'm like you, Tammy. I don't know, Lyssie, how much you work out, but I work out like Tammy. Trust me.
We do it the same. Remember, we're fighting those genetics, but it is possible. It's just as we get older, it's going to get more and more difficult.
All right. So question 3, ladies. How can someone determine if their metabolism is working efficiently? Is it only by testing it, or what are your thoughts?
I mean, first of all, if you know that you wake up tired all the time, you're tired, that's just a sign because you're not getting good energy. Why are you not getting good energy? Then your mitochondria is suffering. And you can pretty much assume, well, maybe you have insulin resistance. Maybe you have, we didn't even talk about that as a situation, but maybe you have high cortisol. Maybe you aren't sleeping well, which that can play with your metabolism. Maybe you just, you're not breaking down your nutrients and getting your nutrients from your food. So you can assume, it's pretty easy to assume that if you don't feel like you're full of energy, that something is affecting your metabolism. Then that's where it can be a little trickier to dig in. That's what we do with our clients. And they're not rocket science tests. We just make sure we test them. And one of the things that's super important is with something like insulin, which we didn't talk about, but insulin is a fat storage hormone and we need it. And when we eat carbohydrates, we want to have very sensitive insulin. So our insulin comes in and it sees that carbohydrate. It's like, yes, it's like a Pac-Man and gobbles it up and takes it to the cell. But over
Forgive my
time,
lack of knowledge, but is insulin something we produce in ourselves, or is that something we have to take?
oh, right. Sorry. Okay. So insulin, yes, we produce it ourselves. Our
Oh,
pancreas produces insulin and it's a normal, healthy response.
Not everyone's produces much because
Well,
we
that's
can
not true.
become
They can
insulin resistant.
They make too much. So what happens is what we want to do is we want to eat a low carbohydrate, and the insulin is very sensitive. We just put out a little insulin, and it takes it to the muscle for energy. But what happens for a lot of us is we eat a lot of carbohydrate, and the insulin puts out, and then finally the insulin, like, the body becomes like less efficient at using it. It's like, so it starts pumping out more insulin and become what's insulin resistant. So what this means is we're pumping out all this insulin, which is our fat storage hormone.
But it's not taking it to the muscles in the cell.
It's just creating more and more fat storage. And what we will tell you, what we see with our clients, is that a lot of doctors will check and they'll say you're okay if your insulin level is up to 23. That's okay, right? But that's not optimal. We don't want anyone's above 7. So people, like, they skirt under, there's a lot of things. Thyroid's like that too with a lot of women. Their doctor's like, oh, I checked your thyroid. They don't check the one that really is the active thyroid. That
Some of them don't, most of them don't even understand how to read it, and that's why they don't even check for some of the things we send these things to their doctors.
So there's a lot of things
about it.
Well, they're overlooked. So
Okay.
you might get a clean bill of slate from your doctor and think, oh, okay, shoot, nothing's going on with my metabolism. But like I said, if you wake up and you just don't feel like you're full of energy, it's a good sign. And then you can dig into like where it might be. Is it your insulin?
What's the root cause? That's
Yeah.
why we do a lot of digging to find out what's.
Are you
contributing
exposed to a toxin? Is it inflammation?
And to get that information, they would talk to either you guys or a doctor or something to figure
Right.
it out.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Some
Oh.
doctors might not be aware, but
Yeah. Well, if you go to a functional practitioner, though.
Well, I think if they watch this show, they'll understand that it's something they need to do. Like go to the doctor and say, "Listen, can you check my metabolism because I'm off? You know, I got 8 hours sleep, yet I'm sluggish."
Yeah.
right.
Right.
Right, and what they'd want to check is their
like
inflammation. Right, they'd want to check their
inflammatory
inflammation.
markers, HSCRP, homocysteine, anything that's
Cortisol levels.
I think that's
They're-
great because sometimes if we educate the doctor, you know, like listening to you guys, then they can work with
Yes,
it.
so they can go to their doctor and direct the doctor what they need. Like, we want to test these nutrients. I want to check for these inflammation markers. I want to check my insulin.
fasting insulin is a big one. They usually just check insulin, but you want to check your fasting insulin.
And you don't just want your CRP, which is an inflammation marker. You want your high sensitive
so it's HSCRP.
And so there's a lot of things like that. And then with the thyroid, that's a whole other can of worms. But
Because that affects metabolism very directly.
it's 100% affecting. And a lot of people fly under the radar because their doctor just checks the TSH, which is basically like if you had a Ferrari and you looked out on the outside and you said it's beautiful, but you didn't pick up the hood and make sure check the gas and there's no gas inside.
And
So
there's
it looks
no
good on the outside, but
washer fluid.
they're not checking any of the active thyroid. So it's like it's a
Stuck.
Ferrari. You think you're driving a Ferrari, and then inside it's like you're puttering along, and they
Yeah.
don't check that. So it can be people search
But
forever. To
We
figure
like
out.
to tell we have almost all of our female clients who come to us. We always have their doctors check for things, and sometimes the doctors say, "Well, I don't want to check for that because I don't know what it means." And we're like, "Don't worry, we'll take care of it because you want to check." That's another thing. If the liver is sluggish, you're not going to be able to make active thyroid hormone. So it turns
Okay.
into all of these things, and the liver can be sluggish from too many toxins, environmental.
Alcohol. Yeah, we're in a world where our life can be taken, our health can take a number of hits, and we can also do a lot to keep the metabolism boosted.
Great. So that was number 4, but you seem to have answered it. So I'm going to go to number 5. Can you share specific foods or dietary strategies that are particularly effective for enhancing metabolic function?
Okay.
Oh, sure.
So one that we love is green tea and matcha green tea because it contains something called EGCG, which actually can speed up metabolic rate. And there are not too many foods that can do that. But also it the other interesting thing about it is that it contains these really potent antioxidants that go in and they help to mop up cell damage. And cell damage is what causes inflammation. So drinking the green tea, and I drink matcha green tea every morning, it helps to lower the inflammation and quell it.
I'm going to start drinking green tea. I promise you.
Just
After
make
that
sure you have.
endorsement, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. I just have to tell you, it's a real nuisance. I have to brush my teeth right afterwards because my teeth literally look green. With the matcha green tea, they literally look green. So just have to brush right after. Just the trick of the green
We
tea.
all have such nice teeth. We have to brush after our teeth.
Yours are very white. I will say that it's easy to know if you're a matcha drinker or a red wine drinker because either you're going to have green or red, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's
All
a good
right.
one. That is
So
definitely
number
one of the
6,
best.
ladies,
Yes.
how does exercise influence metabolism, and what types of workouts are most beneficial for us?
Okay,
we love it.
Yeah.
So when it comes to exercise, you can never go wrong, right? So no matter what you've heard, you can't go wrong. Like it's not like only one is good. So at something like cardio, you're going to burn a lot of calories while you do it. So you're increasing your metabolic rate as you do it. Now there is a burn for like a continuous
afterburn.
It'd be like if you throw an ember in the fire. It's kind of like that afterburn.
So you meaning you continue to burn excess calories even after you've stopped exercising,
right? And one of the best ones would be the HIIT exercise,
which is high intensity interval training. So that's the type.
What I see you do in the gym.
I do some of it. I'm a little bit limited based on what my cardiologist tells me, but you do see me do some of it. But it's basically what you do is you'll go for a short amount of time at a faster pace, and then you cut back and faster, and it's timed intervals of increase.
I do that with running. I'll run real fast and walk a little. I'll run.
Amazing.
Awesome.
You're doing
That's
it.
really good for metabolism. So that's one thing. And as we were saying earlier, the other thing that's amazing for the metabolism is the weight training, because that muscle is such a valuable resource on the body. It's that calorie blasting part of your body you want. As we get older, it's our hottest commodity. Like the more muscle we can have, the better.
And we now also know that it's linked to increased age. The more muscle mass you have, the more muscle tissue, it helps to increase your age.
But nothing is
live longer. Yeah. So
excellent. Thank you so much for that. All right. So number 7, what are the key lifestyle changes that can help increase metabolic rate and improve energy levels?
Oh, okay. So there's a lot of them. So again, the exercise is big. Stress management is huge because stress increases cortisol, which is the belly fat hormone. And so anytime we can tame stress, that's really good because stress also opens up that gut lining, which then things that are supposed to go out through waste come and enter our bloodstream and cause more inflammation. So with stress management, that could be meditation, that could be massages, that could be taking a walk, exercising.
It could be deep breathing, just a few minutes before a meal will take you out of that fight or flight so that you can be in the rest and digest mode, and then you can digest your food, you can absorb more nutrients. So it can be a major win there because you're getting out of the fight or flight, you're shutting down the cortisol, you're opening up your pathways so that you can start being receptive to digesting your food. So it's a real win to be able to do that. Just take a few deep breaths before a meal. So, yeah.
Sometimes it's amazing. It's the simplest things that can help us so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so true.
That's all information, and you're giving us that, so I appreciate it.
Thank you. And sorry if we made it a little bit complicated about the inflammation, but the ways that you end the inflation and the cortisol, but those are the important hidden things. But there's simple things that you can do
to lower
like
them.
The deep breathing. So it's like
drinking the green tea.
Yeah, like a good night's sleep.
I meditate every day for 20 minutes.
That's amazing.
I wake up, I wash up,
and
then I meditate for 20 minutes. I've been doing it since I'm a kid. My brother.
Since you're a kid? That's amazing.
Since I'm 16.
How did you get into it so young? That's incredible.
Well, I was a squirrely little kid, and I have a brother that's 5 years older than me. And he said he was going to Transcendental Meditation, and he dragged me along. Wow. They wouldn't even let me meditate in the beginning for 20 minutes. I used to have to meditate for 7, 8. They made me build up to the 20 minutes because I was so young, and they didn't think I could sit calm for 20 minutes.
And
So,
you did it. That's impressive.
yeah,
That's
thank
the
you.
And
best
see-
habit you could ever have.
I know,
I
I
have to try
love it.
so hard every night to force myself to all right, now it's time. And then I really enjoy it once I do it, but I'm like, I've got too much to do.
So you do
Too
the
much to do.
transcendental meditation.
Transcendental meditation. So I have a bit of a mantra. You're supposed to,
Yeah, I've done it.
have the mantra and then move on and try to quiet your mind as much as you possibly can. And
That's
amazing.
doing it for so many years, I'm good at it. Matter of fact, say it is 7 o'clock in the morning. I'll start and I'll open my eyes, and I swear 95% of the times it's 7:20. My body is so used to doing it for 20 minutes that it knows
Wow.
when to, I'll start it and it'll know 20 minutes later.
That's so cool.
That's
Fast.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
That's great.
All
That's
right.
that's one of the best things you can learn as a kid because it's instilled in you.
Yeah.
Where most of us have to be like, oh right, okay, now in the middle of my craziness when I have so much to do, all right, deep breathe. That's me before I eat my dinner. I'm like,
So
okay,
don't talk to me until you do my deep
Well, I've
breathing.
also
I'm
learned
silencing
that
everything.
there are many different ways of meditation. So sometimes, you got to try a few different ways before. A lot of people like guided meditation. I do one on one of the podcasts. I do a guided meditation. There's
Oh, that's great.
with
That's
soft
awesome.
music. There's so many different ways to do it that, the answer is do it. And I found this, the best advice I can give is if your body stays in the seat, don't get up. The mind will follow. It will eventually. Just, that urge, that squirminess to get up and out,
Yeah.
don't stay there. And the mind does follow.
Wow.
I love that. That's
I do
amazing
too.
advice.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right. So number 8, my lovely ladies, how does sleep affect metabolism? And what
Oh.
are your recommendations for improving sleep quality? Now, I can fluctuate between this, sleeping well and not. So I'm really excited about hearing from you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sleep is a big one when it comes to metabolism, and we wrote a
From
lot about
many
this in our
angles.
first book. First of all, it when you don't sleep well, it favors weight gain for many reasons. First of all, it throws off the balance between ghrelin and leptin, which are your hunger and satiety hormones, so it makes you less satisfied and hungrier. Plus, it also interferes with your body's lean muscle mass and building lean muscle mass. So remember we said lean muscle mass is what keeps your metabolism speedy. And when you're not sleeping well, you have a harder time building lean muscle tissue.
It also increases cortisol. And remember, cortisol is a belly fat hormone, so it's for our body, it's telling our metabolism to store fat. So it hits us from many ways. And then on
blood
top of
sugar. It doesn't, and the blood sugar rises also, and it does not allow, your body cannot be as sensitive. It makes you more insulin resistant, which
you
we
can't
talked
keep
about
up
as
with
well.
the insulin, and then that is our fat storage hormone. So you're pumping out more and more insulin. It's not working, so it's staying in our blood and just constantly telling us.
So
to store
I've
fat.
heard that. So, in essence, I know, like what I've been taught over the years is the more you rest and the better sleep you get, the more your muscles heal and grow as well. So I guess that goes for the whole body, right?
That's
Yes,
true. That's true.
absolutely.
And not overdoing the sleep. Like, you don't want to have 10 hours, but somewhere between like 7 and 9 is good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but that's very true what you've heard. And on time. No, because some
I'm
people
getting
think
15
it's,
hours of sleep every night. No, I'm just
well, some people actually think like they're like, I get 10 hours every night. It's really good. And they don't realize that 10 hours is actually too much.
yeah.
It's
Yeah, I would-
I mean, who has time for 10 hours?
My body
Gosh,
would
bless
not be
them.
able to sustain 10 hours of sleep. It just wakes up
Yeah.
too quickly. It wakes up.
Their daily living activities would be so low, though, that would be counterproductive with their
Right.
metabolism.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Question number 9. Can you discuss the impact of stress on metabolism and ways, this is the important one, ways to manage stress effectively?
Yeah, that's good. So I think we kind of already talked about the stress, what it does. It causes the cortisol. It increases the I mean, it's the same thing as a bad night's sleep. It's increasing the insulin. We also feel hungrier, and when we're stressed, we're in that fight or flight, get me quick fuel.
The stress also opens up the lining of the gut microbiome, so it allows the toxins to go into the system, which then also
Burdens the body and makes
inflammation, makes it harder to lose weight and easier to gain weight. So it's all a vicious cycle.
Our whole body's connected. So Jay, when you said we know it affects the muscles not to sleep well, our whole body is connected. So we used to say, oh, if something feels off in the head, I'll just see the head doctor. But many times it's a whole body connection. So it's something like that. So regarding the stress and ways to manage stress, we talked about the deep breathing. We talked about meditation, and exercise is surprising. It's been shown, even if you think, oh my gosh, I'm stressed, I don't have time to exercise, that'll stress me out to think about it. It really releases endorphins that lower stress in the body.
Yeah, so even just going for a walk outside your front door really helps.
Being in nature and putting your feet in the grass, that
they call it grounding. Just putting your feet in the grass.
Or if you're at the beach like we are, then you just put your your toes in the sand.
Love it. That's fantastic. Great. Thank you for that.
Sure.
What role does hydration play in metabolic health, and how much water should one aim to drink a day?
Yeah, this is such a good question. Most of us, we hear, we should just drink. I should drink more water. I should drink more water.
8 cups a day.
And we don't understand why, but water, it fuels every process in our body, including our metabolism.
Even for us to blink our eyes, but metabolism is fueled by fluid and by hydration.
That's what gets, if you've heard of ATP and the energy, water is part of that reaction.
That cycle.
It has to have water. So if you're even at all 1% dehydrated, your metabolism is suffering.
And 1% dehydration just happens overnight, just due to, even if you start off hydrated, just because you're exchanging oxygen as you breathe, just sweating, anything, you lose water. Right. And so 1% dehydration is pretty easy to happen overnight.
What would we drink on a day? What's our aim? What do we want?
Yeah, a general recommendation is half your body weight in ounces. And that's a very general, because if you're someone that eats a lot of so let's say you're 150 pounds, then it'd be 75 ounces of water.
Wow.
So you're almost talking, that's like 9 cups.
Yeah, and the thing about that too is that if that's possible, but also if you're someone like us, we eat a ton of fruits and vegetables. They're so full of water that for me, if I'm drinking with my dinner, which I get a ton of vegetables, I get way too much water and I'm up the whole night having to use the bathroom. So you have to it's a balance. So it's hard to give someone an exact amount is hard to do.
If your diet is high in, say, meat and dairy, then you're not going to have as much water. It's more the diets that are high in produce that
let me ask you this. A lot of times when I'm at the gym, and I won't drink Gatorade because it has, in my opinion, too much sugar, but I will drink Gatorade Zero. Is that sort of along the same line, or water's water and Gatorade's Gatorade?
Well, it's a great question. So it's a little bit tricky. So in terms of meeting your fluid needs, yes, it would help you to meet your fluid needs. In terms of being like water, one of the benefits of it is it flushes your kidney out, and your kidney is also then your kidney and liver work hand in hand. So we know as we get older, all of our livers get burdened from everyday toxins and that kind of thing. So, just alcohol, poor food choices. So our liver's burdened, and then we're burdening our kidney more, and everything backs up. So in the way of flushing your kidney, pure water is good in that way. But in terms of you staying hydrated,
the Gatorade Zero, that all works.
Especially while exercising.
Yeah, right. It might really encourage you to drink enough.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Can you provide insights into how metabolic health influences disease prevention and overall wellness? And we all don't want to get diseases and stay healthy, and the metabolism has a lot to do with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you hear the words metabolic health, that's referring to,
blood sugar control,
so diabetes, cardiovascular control, hypertension. Those are all metabolic processes. So metabolism, it is part, like when I said in the beginning, metabolism is mostly used to fuel our organs. Those are metabolic processes. So we want to make sure, just from a health perspective, let alone a weight perspective, that our metabolic processes are functioning at their peak.
Okay, cool. All right. So what are some common pitfalls or mistakes people make when trying to boost their metabolism, and how can they avoid them?
Yes. This is such a good question. I will tell you the one that I see all the time, and it really is such a doozy for the waistline. It kills me. Is when we want it, like we're like, oh, I'm gonna boost my metabolism. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna not eat any of carbs. I'm not gonna eat any of this. I'm gonna go on a really stringent diet, and then they lose like 10 pounds in like 10 days.
And then 20 days later, they're 30 pounds heavier. I'm exaggerating, but
isn't the first few pounds water weight anyway?
Some of it is. Some of it definitely is, but it depends on the person. And if they were eating really tons of food and horribly, it's just the calorie reduction, they're going to lose body fat, but also muscle when you lose it that quickly. And that's the problem. So the yo-yo dieting, which is a huge mistake, because yo-yo dieting has been shown to severely affect metabolism, and it's not recoverable. So over time, the body just gets more and more like, uh-oh, it's happening again. Let me conserve. The way that we think our ancestors were, they gave us these genes, like, let me conserve. Let me conserve.
Yes.
That's what the metabolism does when we do yo-yo. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe our in a way, our ancestors, even though they were like going out for the catch, in a way they were yo-yo dieting. They'd be like, I'm going to eat this huge amount of food. And I'm like, no.
And then they don't get any. And then the body becomes weight loss resistant is what happens, because then you've yo-yoed so many times, or your body's gotten used to the starvation, so it starts to conserve calories. It slows down the metabolic rate after you've done it enough times, and then your body no longer responds. And we have people who come to us all the time. They say, I'm trying my old tricks. I used to eat this whenever I wanted to lose weight, and I would lose weight, and now it's not working.
And they're panicked, and we don't blame them, but there are things, just so you know, there are things, it takes a little tweaking, but you can't use those same old tricks anymore, because your body is too smart for that. It wants you not to.
So I'm curious about two things. First of all, I hear a lot about fasting. Is that good or bad? Second part is, what about people, like sometimes this is me. I get busy, I get crazy, I have coffee in the morning, and I wind up eating one large meal a day. What do you think about those two things?
Well, when you say fasting, are you referring to intermittent fasting? Are you referring
like some people I hear fast for 3 days and then eat? And then a week later, they'll fast again for 2. And they say, oh, it cleans out my system.
It's interesting, and it can be beneficial. The thing is, a lot of times, it can be beneficial for some people, but there's a very fine line, because, again, some people who will fast say we hear about these weak things. You cannot maintain your lean muscle mass, and they lose a lot of weight, and a lot of it's lean muscle tissue, and it messes with their metabolism. So we don't always promote that, or we understand that, because there are benefits for the brain health, but it's kind of a trade-off, because you do lose that metabolic lean muscle tissue, metabolically active. The other thing is, females, their bodies are not designed the same way that males are, and it's a very delicate hormonal balance, and it gets completely thrown off if some females
fast. So you don't suggest it for women.
Yes, but it depends on the range and how much. It's really, a fast is a stress on the body.
So it's a very delicate hormonal balance for women. Okay, Some, we know that it's a real challenge. What happens is fasting is a stress on the body, and it's too much of a stress for many females, and just messes with that delicate hormonal balance. Men can get away with a lot more than women. However, sometimes it's too much stress on the body, and it causes extra inflammation when they fast that long.
So it really depends, but there have been beneficial. They're very, I guess you'd say, they're led by experts, and people really know what they're doing. And doing a regular fast that's in certain ways has been shown to be. There's something called autophagy, where we're regenerating. We're kind of like recycling the old cells, getting rid of them, and making new ones from them. And that can be very beneficial. But you really want to know what you're doing when you do that, and you want to fast correctly. And for a lot of people, it's just not appropriate for them. But for some people, it is. So we don't want to say fasting isn't good for everybody, but there's definitely stipulations. It's very individualized.
And there's concerns.
And it's not a one size fit all.
That's wild. That's wild. So I got to tell you, you guys are just amazing. You're both so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
You answered all our questions wonderfully. I mean, people will listen to this and really, really learn. They really, really will. So I want to thank you both, but let me ask you this before we go. Is there anything I didn't cover, I didn't ask, that you'd like to add? If so, let me know. If not.
Those were some really good questions, Jay.
Yeah.
Cool. I thank you so much. And I think
thank you.
Thank you.